and welcome to our session regarding the graduate school. My name is María Medrano. I am the Assistant Director of Graduate Recruitment here at UTSA, and I'm also a recent alumni in the PhD in Psychology program.
And I'm Xavier Santos. I am the International Graduate Recruiter with UTSA, and I am currently a student with the Education Leadership for doctoral level.
Okay, so before we go into the actual presentation, I want to give you an overview of what we'll be covering today. We will tell you a little bit about ourselves, so we'll do introductions so that way you know who you're talking to today and who you can contact if you ever have any questions about the graduate school application process. Then we'll go over international students at UTSA. So how many students do we have? What kind of resources do we have? And what the application process looks like for an international student. Following that, we'll talk about preparing for graduate school. So once you know what is required of you, how do you gather all of that information? And then lastly, we'll talk about resources for our international students and prospective international students. And we'll end with a Q&A session where you can ask any questions that you have. Next slide.
The University of Texas at San Antonio is a public research university in San Antonio with over 34,000 students across its 4 campuses spanning over 700 acres. UTSA is the largest university in San Antonio and the 8th largest by enrollment in the state of Texas. It is classified among R1 doctoral universities, which means it is a very high research activity university. UTSA is also a Hispanic serving institution and offers over 150 graduate degree options from its 6 colleges, which are listed on this slide. Next slide, please.
So you can be part of any of those programs that you're interested in. One of the ways is the traditional way that we'll cover at the end of this, after this slide, where we'll talk about what is it that's required and how do you apply. But if you feel that you don't meet those requirements, specifically the language requirement, we do have an option for international students called pathway programs. And that is a way for students to do 2 things: earn their degree and at the same time improve their English skills. These types of programs are primarily available for sciences and engineering programs, but we're looking to expand into other areas. And as I mentioned before, it is a great way for students who maybe are not too comfortable with their English or are having lower scores on the TOEFL or other English language tests to improve those skills and at the same time start their master's degree. The way to apply for this program is the same way that any other student would apply to a graduate program. So you start with a graduate school application. You have to meet all other requirements. So even though you don't meet the TOEFL or the IELTS, you still have to have a bachelor's degree in that area, the documentation that's required, such as transcripts. Once you're identified as a pathway student, you'll start the entire process. We have over 10 options for you. Again, most of them in the sciences and engineering, with definite talks of expanding this option to other students in other fields. Next slide, please. So when it comes to international students at UTSA, we are always looking and welcoming new international students. So far, we have 33% international doctoral students in our programs, and 6% of our master's students are also considered international. Most of these students come from a variety of countries, but the top ones would be India, China, Bangladesh, Mexico, and Iran. Next slide.
There are over 300 student organizations on campus, with many of them being international students. We have international student organizations that are dedicated to students from specific countries such as Japan, China, and India, as well as Iran, the Caribbean islands, and countries within Africa, and many other international organizations. These organizations are great opportunities to join because they are a place where you can network as well as develop social and marketable skills and meet other people who are on a similar journey just like you. Next slide, please.
In addition to all of these student organizations, we also have areas where you can develop as a scholar and as a researcher. As Xavier mentioned, we are an R1 institution and have about 33 research facilities and counting. We weren't able to put all of the facilities that we have available on a slide, but here are just a few examples. If you want to see more, you can use the link at the bottom of this slide to go and explore the areas that are available. A lot of these areas offer interdisciplinary opportunities, meaning that you can engage with other researchers, other doctoral students, other master's students who are looking at fields that are related to yours or complement yours. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity for collaboration. Next slide.
Graduate school professional development provides supplemental support for students to attend workshops such as for diversity and leadership, as well as major professional meetings at which they make a presentation based on their research or scholarly work. The graduate school provides these in order to assist academic units to more fully fund students' travel for the purpose of presenting research unique to UTSA. Plus, it's another way to network. Next slide, please.
All right, so now that you know a little bit about UTSA, we're going to go over how to prepare for graduate school and how to prepare for that application process. Next slide. When you're looking into your graduate programs, I think most of you might know what you're looking for, but it never hurts for you to think about these few questions. What are your goals? What exactly are you seeking to get out of graduate school? That's one thing you have to consider. Another thing is, what career path do you envision? Does the program that you're looking at help you get to that career path? A lot of times we have students who apply to one program and are not necessarily sure what that program has to offer. So it's really, really important that you do your research to make sure that whatever program you apply to is the right fit for you and that you're a right fit for that program. Other things to consider are funding for your graduate education. Will you be using your own expenses? Will you be applying for scholarships, fellowships, assistantships? There are a lot of opportunities that you can look into before you apply to graduate school to make sure that you have the funding required to complete your program. And then lastly, a really important one is how you will balance your workload, lifestyle, and school. Graduate school is a very big time commitment. You're looking at, even though you might be taking 3 classes per semester, you're looking at a lot of time preparing for those classes, reading for those classes, sometimes presenting. And then of course, at the end of your program, you're looking at doing your own research at your own time. So it takes a lot of time management, and it's definitely important for you to decide how you're going to balance all of that in addition to any other responsibilities that you have. Next slide, please.
Non-US citizens or non-permanent residents are considered international applicants, which the application fee is $90. All applicants, including non-US citizens, US citizens, and permanent residents who have earned university level credits from foreign institutions are required to submit official transcripts along with a mandatory evaluation of the transcripts from Foreign Credential Services of America. It is also required to submit the TOEFL with a minimum score of 79 for internet version and 60 for paper version, or IELTS with a minimum score of a 6.5. We will also need confirmation of resource, your diploma, and immunization records, which will be given to the Student Health Services. Next slide, please.
In addition to that, we're going to go over a list of things that are typically required for graduate program applications. Not all of this is going to be applicable to your program. So as I mentioned earlier, make sure that you do some research and look at what is required for your specific program. One thing though that will be required for every student that applies for graduate school is their academic records. And that includes official or at least unofficial transcripts. We usually recommend that you submit unofficial transcripts because that expedites the application process. If you're able to provide that when you're uploading documents to your online application, it'll be a lot easier for the processor to calculate GPAs or make sure that you have everything that's required. That includes your GPA requirement, making sure they have either a bachelor's or a master's degree, depending on what program you're applying for. So definitely a lot easier to upload unofficial transcripts. Once you have a decision, if you're admitted into your program, that's when you would bring in your official transcripts that have to be sent directly from your previous university. You can do this in 3 different ways. One of them is having your university mail those transcripts to UTSA. The other one is having your university email those transcripts to UTSA. And the third one, you can have those transcripts sent to yourself and bring them over to UTSA. You have to be really careful if you're going to go with that third option, because if you open that envelope, that immediately makes those transcripts unofficial. So you have to make sure that they are sealed. For international students, in addition to those requirements, as Xavier already mentioned in the past slide, you will need your foreign credential evaluation, which is done through the Foreign Credential Services of America. It's a company that works with UTSA and will send your evaluation directly to the correct office. And then of course you'll need your transcript, but that can actually be submitted after you're admitted to the program. We know that you only get one, so usually we'll have you bring it in, we'll take a copy and give it right back to you. Next slide.
When creating a resume and a CV, you want to include certain things on it, such as your contact information, education history like GPA, awards, and relevant skills. Also include your work/internship experience and any other extracurricular activities you may have. With the resume, the purpose of the resume is supposed to be short and sweet. You want to get right to the point in your education and past experience while also adding some relevant skills, tools, certifications, if you have any. A CV is a detailed document highlighting your professional and academic history. CVs typically include information like work experience, achievements and awards, scholarships or grants you've earned, coursework, research projects, and publications of your work. You may be asked to submit a CV when applying for jobs in academia or a job outside the US. To learn more, you can go to careercenters.utsa.edu. Next slide, please.
Some programs will require a personal statement. So a lot of the times they will be very specific as to what they want in that statement. They'll tell you how many pages, single space, double space, what kind of questions you have to answer. If you have that information, make sure that you stick to that format and that you only write what the committee is asking you for. Sometimes though, you'll have programs that just say, we want a personal statement. In a way that kind of benefits you. If you like structure, it could be a little bit more difficult, but at the same time, it gives you an opportunity for you to introduce yourself and include anything that you think the committee should know before they make a decision. When it comes to the personal statement, the other nice thing about it is that you become more than just a score. You become more than just a GPA number. You're a person. And so it's an opportunity for you to talk about your career goals, how they align with that program. I keep going back to doing your homework on that program, because if you describe your career goals in your personal statement and they don't match the program that you're applying to, then the committee is going to know that that's not going to be a good fit for you or for them. So please make sure that you research your program and include your goals in that personal statement. Talk about your interests. Why did you become interested in the field that you're applying to? Talk about any relevant experiences that you have. This is not a time for you to talk about your entire personal life, but it's definitely a good place for you to include anything that's relevant. Maybe you were in a study abroad trip and you saw something that sparked your interest in a specific area of research. The last thing is something that I learned from talking to faculty and people who actually sit at these committees and make decisions, and it's addressing red flags. What red flags means are any grades that are lower grades within your discipline, anything that you think could make you look like a questionable candidate, make sure that you talk about it, especially if you have very good reasons for it. Let's say you were working full-time, studying full-time, had family responsibilities which affected your academic performance. You want to talk about that, not only because it won't leave the committee trying to guess what was going on, but it will show perseverance and your ability to get through difficult times and still achieve your degree. Next slide. So just a kind of like a brief, I'm going to call it suggestion. You don't have to do your statement in the same format that is written here. This is just to give you a little bit of structure if you're still kind of confused as to how to write your personal statement. So you always want to start with an introduction. Again, don't talk about your entire personal life. Just introduce yourself as a scholar. Talk about what you've done, whether as an undergraduate student or as a professional, if you've been out working in the field. Even if you haven't been working in a field that directly ties into your program, I'm pretty sure that you've gained some transferable skills that you can talk about. Aside from talking about what you've done, talk about outcomes. Did you present at a conference a paper that you worked on? Did you earn an award? Maybe you are working in your field and you increase productivity in a specific area. Those achievements are going to be really helpful for you to include on there, aside from them being in your resume. And especially if your program doesn't require a resume, but does require a personal statement. Of course, you want to move on and talk about your academic interests and your goals. What do you want to do? What career path do you envision? And if you know what you want to research and you know that there's a faculty member in that department that is doing research in a similar area, don't be scared to name them in your personal statement. I want to work with Dr. Santos because he does research on this area. There's nothing wrong with that. That's actually going to be helpful. And then lastly, conclude, show that you're enthusiastic, happy, and ready to start graduate studies. Next slide.
A letter of recommendation is a letter written by someone who can recommend an individual's work or academic performance. It's typically sent to a hiring manager or admissions officer who is deciding whether to employ or admit a candidate. My tip to asking for a letter of recommendation is to ask your recommender for a strong letter of recommendation and give them plenty of notice so they can write these letters for you. Next slide, please. Another tip is make sure you let them know the deadline as well. So they have that plenty of time, they can write these letters, as well as provide them your resume and your statement of purpose. So you do want to write your statement of purpose first. So it gives your recommender a better idea on the goals you want to attain in the program of your choosing. Next slide, please.
One last thing that might be required, may or may not be required, is test scores. So in general, graduate programs will require either the GRE if you're going into a program that is general program, physics, psychology, engineering. If you're looking into a business or management program, then programs will require the GMAT sometimes. Both of these programs are essentially have the same concept. They're standardized tests to evaluate people kind of on the same level. And so usually they'll have 3 sections. You're looking at a verbal reasoning section, which is kind of like your reading section, quantitative reasoning, math, and analytical writing, where you write a short essay. In addition to those, I know we've already said it, but we want to emphasize this as well. You'll need test scores as an international applicant. So we'll accept either the TOEFL or the IELTS. One other thing that I want to repeat for you guys is that I don't want you to be discouraged if you don't meet these test score requirements. Please make sure that you reach out to Xavier, me, anybody at the English Language Center, or anybody at UTSA, because we can talk to you about whether or not you qualify for the Pathways program. At the moment, I'm going to say the date, it's around February, and we are waiving these scores for a lot of our programs. This is due to the pandemic. For the most part, they will be required at any other term. Next slide. We want to end the presentation with a few resources for you. Of course, you'll have time to ask your questions at the end of the presentation, but we want to make sure that you know that you can find a lot of our sessions and a lot of our career path videos on YouTube. We're on there as the UTSA Graduate School. So if you just look that up, you'll be able to find all of our playlists, all of our videos for current and prospective graduate students. We also have a page that's specific for international students and specifically for those who are still looking at the graduate program. So not necessarily those who are already enrolled. The nice thing about it is that you can find anything on there. Deadlines, program offerings, advisors, anything you can think of. We want to make it really easy for you to be able to reach out to the people you need to connect with. And then lastly, we have student ambassadors, which you can contact through Unibuddy. This is a system that allows you to chat with our international students and even some of our domestic students. And it's a one-on-one conversation where you can not only just learn about UTSA and the admissions requirement, but you can know what it's like to be a student here and learn what their experience has been so far. Next slide. And now we'll be happy to take any questions that you have. If we're not able to get to your questions, or if you're watching a recording of this session, please feel free to contact us at grad.recruit@utsa.edu, and that will connect you with any of our graduate recruiters. For the most part, you'll probably be talking to Xavier. He's our international recruiter, but any of us will be able to assist you.
What are the admission requirements for international students who intend to pursue their graduate studies at UTSA? Well, every program is different, so you want to keep a lookout on that. So most programs are going to, or every program is going to require your transcripts, application, of course, which, like I said before, is $90. But some are going to require a statement of purpose, or they may not. Same with letters of recommendation, resume, and as well with the GRE, TOEFL, those may be waived due to the pandemic, or they might not be required at all. So it just depends on the semester and what's going on with that program at the time. So always keep a look on your program and the requirements, because they are not all the same. So just always, please keep in mind on those requirements. And again, every international student is required to do a Foreign Credential Services of America. Remember, we do not accept any other service except for Credential Services of America.
What other options are available for international students who do not meet the direct entry requirement due to language proficiency? So the next best option for you is going to be the Pathways program, especially if you're looking into engineering or sciences programs. That way you can learn English or improve those skills if you already have a basic level of English, and at the same time start with your program. So that way you don't lose any time and you're able to still complete the degree in about 2 years if it's a master's program. The second option is to enroll in English as a second language courses if your program is not part of the Pathways program. So that way, again, you can improve those English skills to get to the level that we need you to be at, and then apply to the graduate program.
What kind of scholarships are available to international students? Where can I find more information about this? International students do not qualify for federal aid and are not eligible for FAFSA. To assist international students with their educational costs, UTSA participates in 2 programs that international students may apply for to receive funding. These programs are International Student Grant and Good Neighbor Program. For more information on this and on scholarships, you should check out the Scholarship Hub at UTSA website, which is onestop.utsa.edu.
How long does it take to complete a master's program at UTSA? Generally, it should take about 2 years. These programs are usually 30 to 60 credit hours long, and it all really depends on the student and how many courses they're enrolled in per semester. As an international student, more than likely, you will be required to enroll full-time, so I don't foresee it being any longer than 3 years. What makes UTSA a unique institution to complete postgraduate studies in the US? Well, one of the things that we're really excited about that we included in this presentation is that we are an R1 institution. So that's definitely a plus for wanting to come to UTSA. There are other 3 main things that make UTSA unique. One of them is affordability. We are below the national average when it comes to cost. Usually graduate school is a little more expensive than undergrad, and we're still lower at that cost as well. The other one is professional development opportunities. As Xavier talked about during our presentation, we have plenty of opportunities for you, whether you want to go into the industry, academia, or focus on research. So we have those available, as well as the opportunity for you to talk to professionals who are already almost at the peak of their careers to learn how they got there. We have writing development programs. We have programs that help you write grants. So the opportunities that we have for you as an actual graduate student are many. And then the last thing is definitely diversity. We have a very diverse student body at the undergraduate and graduate level. We are a Hispanic serving institution with about 60% Hispanic students. and we have about 11% of international students, which doesn't sound like a big number, but when you're looking at a school of over 30,000 students, we have plenty of other students that you can collaborate with, identify with, and share experiences with.
Could you please talk about UTSA's Carnegie R1 classification and how this classification benefits students who are planning on completing their education at UTSA? The Carnegie R1 or Tier 1 designation is synonymous with both academic and research excellence. The designation places UTSA among the nation's top public and private research universities, amplifying its statewide and national exposure to attract and recruit world-class faculty and top students. UTSA designation and our classification of being a Carnegie R1 position, the university to align with the prestigiousness associated with American universities while empowering faculty, staff, and students to achieve excellence.
How can I contact student ambassadors who are currently pursuing their postgraduate studies at UTSA? We have Unibuddy, which is the main way and quickest way in which you can reach a student. If you go to global.utsa.edu, you'll be able to find their chat bubbles where you can send them a message and you will hear back within 24 hours. You can ask them anything related to the application process, to their experience as an international student, where you can live, where you can shop, anything that you can think of, you can ask them and they're very happy to share their experiences with you.
And that's our presentation. Thank you everyone for listening and coming to join us. It was a pleasure. So I wish you the best and your luck in your journey and take care to yourself.
I also want to thank you for your time and for joining us today and for taking the time to watch our presentation as well. If you ever have any questions, feel free to contact us at grat.recruitment@utsa.edu, and that will connect you with us or any of our graduate recruiters. Thank you.